to the 12th grade about 1.5 miles from here. So I feel like I'm on home turf. And if there's a home court advantage, I hope I'm going to get it because I may need it.
Well.
Now, I am here trying to represent the reality-based community. I am here to issue a call for political action. I want to talk about the situation that the world is in. I want to talk to you about models of struggle, political struggle, because that is what I am here to call you to. I am looking for revolutionary cadre, revolutionary leaders, and I'm sure that there are some of you here. How can you contribute to the cause of civilization in this world, in the crisis that humanity is now in? Your talents are needed. Civilization wants you. Now, the crisis, in short order. We are in a world economic depression. It started here in the United States and in Britain in 2007, 2008. It started with the bankruptcy of Northern Rock, Lloyd's Bank, Countrywide Bank, Bear Stearns, Lehman Brothers, and then the entire Anglo-American banking system. That crisis has now been exported to Europe, artificially, but effectively. So Europe is now in the throes of a depression. The rest of the world is following. The slowdown has reached India, China, other parts of the world. Nobody but nobody is immune from this world economic depression. We are now at a turning point in this crisis. The U.S. ruling elite, according to my analysis, is determined to impose a regime of genocidal austerity in this country, starting principally in December of this year. The regime of genocidal austerity will mean the end of the world as you have known it. This entire nation will be transformed into some kind of Dickensian workhouse, some kind of treadmill, or if you like, a concentration camp, but with economic purposes, where people will be worked to death. Based on what you can see coming from Romney, from Obama, from the two parties, the world ahead of us is naturally a world where there will be no social safety net. No Medicare, no Medicaid, no unemployment benefits, no minimum wage, no food stamps. There will be no S-chip for kids to get health insurance. There'll be no Head Start so a poor kid can get a breakfast. There will be no WIC so a pregnant woman can get a meal of cheese so the baby doesn't have cognitive problems later on. Of course, welfare no longer exists. It's long gone. But it goes beyond that. In the world that's coming now, there will be no public education. There will be no public schools. Private academies will replace them. The dream that we've had since the GI Bill of going to college as a badge of the middle class will be over. College will go back to what it was in the 1920s and earlier. It will be reserved to the super rich. There will be no child labor laws. There will be essentially none of the social legislation that adds up to such security and such economic rights as the American people have gained. So it amounts to rolling back centuries of political struggles, labor struggles, and other efforts. I call on you to organize now to stop this. The critical moment is coming now in December. In Washington, where I operate, it's clear that there's a two-party consensus to begin flaying the American people alive. And in particular, we're looking at the month of December. It is immaterial whether Obama wins or Romney wins. The ruling class seems to want Romney. But the Obama of the second term will be an exterminating angel compared to the Obama of the first term. In other words, he will throw away all barriers and begin selling his base out, attacking his own base in a way that we have not seen so far. The key words involved in this attack are the fiscal cliff and the grand bargain. And we probably ought to throw in the lame duck session. The best way to begin skinning the American people alive is to use the December lame duck session to pass some version of austerity. But austerity, like the British, but further down than the British, like what has been done in certain countries in Europe, but more severe, reactionary, quasi-fascist, killer austerity. Austerity where the results are not measured in dollars, but in dead bodies. That is what is coming, and both parties agree. What we must have by December is an organized force to fight against those cuts, to fight for the economic rights of the American people, and indeed for their survival. You have got to stand up to defend your fellow citizens, your fellow man, from this genocide, because that is the only word for it. My proposal to deal with this is the creation of a national anti-austerity committee. It's not a political party, but it might become one. It's certainly an alternative to the bankruptcy of the two existing political parties. To fight the cuts and to impose a recovery program, a way to get out of the depression. And I'll tell you that if I have a few minutes at the end, exactly how to do this. One of our basic principles is protest is for wimps. We're sick of protest. Protest gets you nowhere. It's time to take power, or at least to take as much power as you can get your hands on at any given time. And that, of course, means you look inside yourself, you take a census of what your capabilities are, you look at the big world around you, and you try to find the place where you can intervene. You can't pay attention to hundreds of issues. A lot of issues, you have to let them go by, because you've got to pick the one point where intervention with limited forces could actually make a difference. Now, that's all the bad news. The good news is there is a model of struggle that is successful compared to the ones that some people here have been exposed to. We've had representatives, I guess, of what used to be the Ron Paul movement. Well, the Ron Paul movement is a failure. The Ron Paul movement is an abject fiasco. The proposal was genocide against the American people, and this is now exposed. It was nothing but a wingman for Mitt Romney. That's all it ever was. It was a huge fraud. It was a market of dupes. The other one we've tried is Occupy. Instead of the right-wing anarchist Ron Paul, we've now got the left-wing anarchists from Adbusters Foundation, David Graeber, and the rest of these people that successfully sabotaged a lot of people with a lot of very important potential. Both of those models have failed. We'll discuss maybe if we have some time how they failed. But the question is now, is there a successful model? Yes, there is. The most successful model of struggle against finance capital that we have seen in our time comes from Greece. Anybody from Astoria, you should be proud of your Greek heritage, because it is the Syriza movement of Greece that represents the one model that makes sense for us to imitate, or at least to learn from. And I'm not doctrinaire. I'm not proceeding from Marxism or anything else. I'm simply saying, look around you and see what works and what doesn't work. And if you're not a fool, you want to implement what does work. Now, specifically, the Syriza movement, it means the united bloc of the left, went from 4% early in the year to 27% in the most recent elections. They came out of nowhere to become the second largest party in the country. They are now the opposition. They grew by almost 600%. 600%. And they caused a hysterical freakout of the entire world financier ruling class. And the entire media of the world was dedicated in the end of May, beginning of June, to the slander and the demonization of Syriza. So what do they have? I would sum it up under 4 headings, maybe. They have a program. They have an organization. They have a leadership. And they have a strategy. Now you notice, we don't have any of that. We need to get it. And you've got to face facts. Camping in the park is no substitute, however well motivated, for all of those things. You've got to have program, organization, leadership, and you got to have a strategy. Notice also the bankrupt anarchists of Adbusters and David Graeber, the facilitators down at Zuccotti Park, told you that those were bad things. You shouldn't want those things, they said. Oh, that's bad. If you have demands, you'll be co-opted. This is now a laughingstock in the world. The comedian Bill Maher has shown in his comic routine how absurd it is to say, let's have a demonstration in the park, but we dare not make any demands, otherwise we'll be co-opted. This is infantile. This is typical anarchist clowning. So let's look at Syriza. The first thing is program. It's got to be simple. In this case, it's 5 points. We can go through them. You can memorize them in less time, right? It's not exactly peace, bread, land, all power to the Soviets, but almost. The first one is no austerity, no cuts. Don't cut the social safety net. Don't take our economic rights away. And I don't care who you are. You can say, well, I'm a libertarian Republican. The hell you are, you're a fascist if you're coming to take away my economic rights. I don't care who you are or what your story is. No cuts. If there have been cuts, you know what we do? Roll them back. If people have been fired, if workers have been let go, if they've been laid off, roll back those cuts. And if not, then you get a strike as well as political action. Second point, stop anti-labor and anti-worker measures. Here in the United States, we have a bunch of petty fascist tyrants. We have little Hitlers and little Mussolinis running around the Midwest. We got Governor Walker, the Duce of Wisconsin. We've got Snyder of Michigan with his emergency manager law. We've got Congressman Kasich, or was it Congressman Jokic? Now the governor of Ohio, Governor Kasich, who wants to bust all the unions. Mitch Daniels of Indiana wants to bust all the unions. Here in these states, like Cuomo or Jerry Brown, they do it slightly differently. They use the Obama method of putting the knife in surreptitiously, but you get the idea. Roll back all anti-labor and all anti-worker measures. The third point, social justice. This obviously changes from country to country, but we need a series of measures to establish greater social justice and greater democracy. Fourth point, time to arrest criminal bankers, the felons that caused this crisis. That includes Mitt Romney. Mitt Romney is a felon. Arrest him, indict him. Send him up the river to Sing Sing, or Panama or Clinton, whatever it is. Romney swore on one document, he's talking to the Federal Elections Commission, he said, oh, I left the Spain capital in 1999. Then he's got another one that he swore to the Securities and Exchange Commission saying, no, I stayed at Spain. One or the other is perjury. Indict him. He's a felon. And for Obama, we also have other charges for him. Fifth point, you've got to lift the debt burden off the world. There are $2 quadrillion of toxic derivatives floating around in this world. much of this has got to be canceled. The remedy for the derivatives crisis is the shredder. Take your derivatives, put them in the shredder. Take your electronic contracts, push the delete button, get them out of the world. They don't have value. They have negative value. They're like the Raspuchnik. Remember the currency that was, it had a negative value because you had to pay the garbage men to come and take it away once you had it. So if there's a burden on Greece of international financial debt or any country that is excessive, you freeze the debt. Freeze it. No payments of interest, no payments of principal for the duration of the world economic depression. There's the program. The second, have an organization. What is Syriza? It starts with 12 splinter parties, 12 little sects, 12 little groups, groupuscules, grouplets, whatever you want. And this is then merged into this power, which is now 27% of the electorate, and it is the opposition. Why can't we do this here? We could do it here if people wanted it. If you want it, it can happen. You've got to have an organization. And the organization has to be political. It has to have political demands. Not the indignados. The indignados struck out. What did they ever get? They got nothing. What did Occupy get? If we compare Occupy to the Tea Party has 75 members of Congress, 6 senators. What does Occupy have? 0. Nothing. And they're on their way to nothing. So it's going to be nothing compounded with nothing. Again, the goal is protest is for wimps. Revolutionaries want to seize power. So there's your organization. A third point, you need leaders. Yes, you do. Now, in the case of Syriza in Greece, it's a political genius. And the guy is younger than a lot of people here. Alexis Tsipras, born in 1974. So he is a product of post-communism and the evolution of the European left after the fall of the Soviet Union. And he has learned those lessons. He is by no means a communist, by no means a doctrinaire Marxist, but he has absorbed whatever of that could be of value. He has taken the lead in going around Europe. He went to Paris and he met with Mélenchon. Mélenchon being the leader of the left front. The guy's got about 10 or 12% of the vote in the French presidential election. And they talked about how to seize control of the European Central Bank. Because that's the task. Not to leave the euro, not to go out as a derelict on the open sea so the Anglo-American wolf packs of hedge funds and zombie banks can destroy you, but to stay in the euro and fight the leadership of the European Central Bank. Fight to get control of the European Central Bank and use credit creation for job creation with 40 million jobs for the people of Europe. So he discussed that with Mélenchon in Paris. Then he went on to Berlin and he talked to Gysi and Lafontaine and the other people of Die Linke. Die Linke is also about 10 or 12%. That's the German left party. Now, it's not a lot, but if you can start from 4 and go to 27, if you start from 10 or 12 with the right program, you can take it all the way and actually seize power. So we've done program, we've done organization, we've done a leadership, and then there's a strategy. The strategy is, once again, take power. You take power. You, not the army. Not like these poor people in Egypt. They said, oh, the army is coming to take power. We're so happy. We love the army. It's ridiculous. You take power. And the other thing is, don't be a part of any coalition government that's going to impose austerity. Keep yourself away from it. Now, this is the model to be imitated, or at least to be studied, so we can glean what is applicable here. If you're not doing this, I really wonder what you're doing. Lifestyle reform is great. Macrobiotic diet, wonderful from time to time. But it is an illusion to think that if you reform your own lifestyle, you've also changed the world. The petty bourgeoisie has thought that for many generations. It has never worked. We look at Adbusters, we look at Occupy. Bill Maher says these are the unhappy campers. The impulse here is we want to have a hippie commune in the park, and we get to essentially camp out in the park. When the average person looks at that, he says, oh, a bunch of petty bourgeois students doing their thing. That's what student anarchists and other people do. If you don't fight for other groups in the society, they won't fight for you. If you say, American people, what do the American people need? Let's talk about the classic Joe Sixpack, right? The guy who's at the center of all the election polling. What does Joe Sixpack need? There's a guy who wants to foreclose on Joe Sixpack's house. We've got to stop the foreclosure. Joe Sixpack needs to send his kid to the doctor, and he doesn't have the money. That's another issue. He's got to pay a tuition bill for a somewhat older kid. He's got an aged relative that needs medical care. These are the issues of personal economic survival, not process. Not campaign finance reform, not even Glass-Steagall, meritorious though that is. Glass-Steagall to the average person means nothing. How does it help me? Where is the way out of the Depression? So, the Occupy model has failed. What did Ron Paul propose? Ron Paul proposed genocide against the American people. There are 50 million people in this country. They have no more welfare because they were stripped by Bill Clinton and the wonderful Democratic Party 15 years ago. There is no more aid to mothers with dependent children, a title of the Social Security Act of 1935. They have no job. Their unemployment benefits have run out. They are the 99ers, and once you're beyond 99 or even less, you've been sold out by Obama because he won't lift a finger, nor will the Democratic Party. They have no health care. There's about 50 million people with no health care. And this bill that's in the process, it covers some, but it needs to cover all right away because people are dying right now, tonight. So there's no job, no unemployment benefits, no welfare payments left, no health care. The one thing these people have is food stamps. And at this point, our hero, Ron Paul, the Confederate Freemason, arrives and says, he's going to cut food stamps by 63%. Well, I'm sorry. You want to cut food stamps for the 50 million by 63%? That's a Nazi program. 30 years ago, somebody like that would have been laughed out of the room as a kook, a raving maniac. Go join Milton Friedman on some enchanted island, or von Hayek and von Mises. Or, what are you, a fascist or a Nazi, would be the healthy response of an American to that kind of garbage. So this is a failure. And of course, we can go through in detail if we had time, how Ron Paul was planned into the Romney campaign to make sure that Romney got the nomination. Here's the government you're going to get out of that. The foreign policy under Romney will be controlled by neocons. The neocons are coming back. That means Bolton, Elliott Cohen, it means Dan Senior, it means Kagan, it means the whole neocon group. They'll control foreign policy. Confrontation with Russia, China, over Syria, and other things like this. On the domestic front, it's going to be the Mormons. The Mormons, a very, very interesting group. I'll have much more to say about them before too long. Romney, of course, is a Mormon. If it's Rubio, you know Rubio, the senator from Gusanos? Rubio was also a Mormon. And the head of the transition team is Governor Levitt of Utah, another Mormon. And if you're the head of the transition team and you've already been named, what are you doing? You're picking all the plum jobs for the federal government. It's going to be a Mormon mafia. So, you know, they say Syria is bad because the Alawites rule the rest of the population. Forget Syria. Syria is not bad at all. But if you have a domestic economic policy run by Mormons, and you're not a Mormon, you're going to know what it's like to be part of an oppressed minority if you haven't learned that so far. Because that's a religion that had anti-black racism built into it, starting from the very, well, at least from about the 1840s and 1850s on. Now, what do we need to do? The program we need to fight for here, 5 points, simple. No cuts, no austerity, hands off the social safety net. Indeed, the Social Security pension has got to be increased, because that's all many people will have. They won't have a 401k. We've got to have full funding of Head Start. If you look at the way that this spreads out, everybody in the population is considered. We've got to have stuff for children, for expectant women, for young families, for families moving into homes, families trying to stay in homes, and then those who are sick, elderly, and so forth. So it's a seamless social safety net that catches everybody. And why? Because we've got to preserve the quality of our labor power, because otherwise our national economy is going to go down the tubes. We have an incompetent, crackpot ruling class. They think they can run this country as a low-wage economy. It cannot be done. And they also have to factor in that there's competition in the world that will not follow the low-wage model. So we've got to get the United States back to being a high-wage economy. That's the imperative, and not super-exploited foreign workers or other programs. So no cuts and no austerity. The second point is seize control of the Federal Reserve. Nationalize the Federal Reserve and make them do what we want. What do we want? We want them to start issuing trillion-dollar tranches. It's what they do for Wall Street right now. If you're a zombie bank or a hedge fund hyena, you can go to the Federal Reserve and they will lend you money at 0%. If I want to build the tunnel under the Hudson River, I can't get a penny. If I want to build hospitals or public housing, I can't get a penny from the Fed. You've got to be a parasite. You've got to be a zombie banker or a hedge fund hyena. So let's turn that around. Let's say the zombie bankers and the hedge fund hyenas have gotten theirs. We want $1 trillion right now. You put out a tender offer. You say to all the states, start selling us the bonds that you're going to issue for your infrastructure policy. I just came from Washington, right? The railroad is what it was 125 years ago. The Long Island Railroad is slower than it was 125 years ago. You've got to rebuild all of that. The water system, right? Rail, road, electricity grids, water systems, sewage systems, canal systems, and all the rest. So you start with these successive tranches of $1 trillion, and you keep going until you reach full employment. Full employment would mean the creation of 30 million plus new productive jobs at union wages. What else is there to fight for? Nobody in this room, in this gathering, has ever seen full employment, unless you're significantly older than I think. The last time we had full employment was 1945. So since then, since 1945, the job creators have struck out. They have failed. They haven't created the jobs we need for a growing population. And with that, we can realize economic value. Okay, so no austerity, seize the Fed, and then start with your programs, right? It's a worldwide process, but we're going to have to bring water from northern Canada and Alaska to irrigate the Great Basin. We've got to build a coast-to-coast maglev. We've got to rebuild the entire infrastructure of this country, including public housing, including about 1,000 hospitals, because there's also soft infrastructure. You're going to have to train about 250,000 doctors. If you don't have 1,000 hospitals and 250,000 doctors, it doesn't matter what the health plan says. It doesn't matter whether it's Obamacare or whatever it is. You'll never have health care unless there's actually a doctor in the hospital physically present in order to provide it. So that's four, and then the fifth one, I believe, is a new Bretton Woods. In other words, you've got to reestablish a system of fixed rates among currencies with the goal of promoting international trade. So you have an export-led recovery in addition to the things that I've said. So those points elaborated, you can find them at tarpley.net. At tarpley.net, at the top of the page, there's a 5-point program. It includes other things. Various derivatives. If derivatives cannot be taxed out of existence, we need to do that with a Wall Street sales tax. Did you say, who pays for all that stuff? Well, the on-budget part, the social safety net part, Wall Street pays 1% on every transaction. And if they have Flash trading, high-frequency trading, program trading. They can do 1 million transactions per second. Great. 1% goes in the public treasury for every one of them. Half of it goes to the feds, half of it goes to the states. You may not know, New York State has a Wall Street sales tax on the books. You know that? New York State has a Wall Street sales tax, but they decided to remit the money. They give the money back because they're blackmailed. Wall Street says, if you tax us, we'll go to Jersey. Call their bluff. There's too many people here that they want to exploit. They're not going to go to Jersey. Tax them. Tax them in New Jersey, too. Do it as a federal approach. Ban credit default swaps. Ban collateralized debt obligation. Ban synthetic credit derivatives. If you heard about the London whale, those were synthetic credit derivatives. You know what you do with those? Ban them, and then you get the shredder and the delete button. So I am looking once again for cadre. I'm looking for people who want reform. It's a reform agenda if you want, but the extent of what I've just outlined is a revolution. I've just told you what the outlines of an actual revolution in this country would be. Not the fakers, not the Assanges, not the Ron Pauls, not the David Gravers, not any of these people, but the real thing. 30 million new productive jobs and a new economy. With the space program, biomedical research, high-energy physics. You have to have your 3 or more science drivers in place. All of that included in my on the website. Follow me at tarpley.net. Twitter feed is Webster G. Tarpley. If you look at it today, you'll find out that the shooter in Colorado was not alone. There was a second person in the team. And their simple YouTube, a guy saying that there was an eyewitness who says there was a second shooter in the team. So tarpley.net, Webster G. Tarpley. My radio program, World Crisis Radio, it's a weekly briefing on just about everything in the world, or as much as I can get into the 2 hours that I have. And otherwise, those who would like to support my work are invited to come and see me. I am the author of a number of books. There's one in the works on Pearl Harbor and the war of Wall Street against Franklin D. Roosevelt and the New Deal. You can come and see me over here after the speech, which I think it is now concluded. Okay, thank you.